me the fuck out of here!
So we've seen how this new version of Mr. X's base form gave us some of the best moments in this new Resident Evil 2 remake, seeing how he compares to Nemesis, the main antagonist from Resident Evil 3. But with all the similarities that they have, the question that's been brought to my attention was that who would win between these two iconic tyrants during their base form, Mr. X versus Nemesis. Anyways, what is up you guys, this is DeVuH, and in this video we're going to be discussing which tyrant would win if they clashed head on, and see how one tyrant may be more of an advantage over the other, where we cover their overall encounters and gameplay mechanics, to their significance in the storyline and their respective Resident Evil title. Anyways, before we get started, if you guys want a quick analysis of Mr. X and his Super Tyrant form, please feel free to check it out on my channel. I'll leave a card in the top right section of your screen so you guys can check it out. Alright, so starting off, we knew from the get-go that Mr. X would be a great adversary for us to go against in this new Resident Evil 2 remake, showcasing many of his in-game battle mechanics, which consisted of him stalking us throughout the game, most prominently during our gameplay in the RPD station, where we saw him follow us from room to room, which was similar to Nemesis, but extenuated by the fact that he can explore throughout the areas of the environment, looking for us even when we lose him for a short while. Also, another aspect that helps Mr. X stalk our characters is by hearing gunshot sounds, which we the players have to be careful of not getting carried away with, because if Mr. X is near the vicinity, he may get alerted and start to hunt us down in the area that we made noise from. Also, he does have some set piece encounters where we have no choice but to encounter him. An example of this was when we were picking up the lever for the library in the file room on the west side of the RPD station, because once we do that, even if we lose him on the other side of the map, we'll start to hear that menacing soundtrack of his, and he'll eventually pop right through the door. Also, Mr. X is pretty much invulnerable to all attacks when being shot on his body, so there's no need to waste bullets on him in that aspect. But if we do decide to shoot him on the head, he'll proceed to power walk much faster than usual, almost at the same speed as our character while running, as we hear those loud and thudding footsteps of his stomping right behind us, that has caused us to be paranoid during our playthrough. But luckily for us, there are a lot of safe areas that Mr. X can't come into, which will give us some relief from this tyrant. Overall, the developers from Capcom have given Mr. X some traits that are similar to Nemesis, especially when it comes to his encounters and with the way he stalks our characters. But let's go back in time and see how our encounters with the infamous pursuer tyrant Nemesis has given us so much tension during our gameplay in Resident Evil 3, even in its base form. Alright, so starting off, we first encounter Nemesis when we see him jump into the scene while we were in front of the RPD station, where he ambushes both Jill and Brad, giving us one of the most iconic scenes in Resident Evil 3. So after disposing of Brad, we quickly realized that this tyrant is already on a different level than any previous monster that we've seen in Resident Evil at this point of its history, because the closest incarnation to Nemesis at this point was Mr. X from the original Resident Evil 2, where we saw him encounter our characters throughout the game, but they were set piece moments that were scripted to be there. Also, Mr. X in his previous version showcases some of his gameplay mechanics, where he would only walk towards our protagonist, to him using a standard melee attack, and to the way he follows our characters. But Nemesis on the other hand, took everything that made Mr. X so terrifying and ramped it up to a whole different level, where we see this tyrant even in his base form be able to give us so much tension during our playthrough in Resident Evil 3, where he displays his ability to run at us at full speed, which is magnified by the fact that he runs faster than our characters. Also, he can follow us throughout the environment, catching us off guard at the worst possible times. But even in his absence, you still feel like he's just around the corner, waiting for us to walk into an environment so they can finally catch up to our characters and finish the mission of eliminating the remaining STARS members. The perfect example of this is when we hear that tension soundtrack that plays when he's off screen, indicating that he may be in the room right next to us. And also, let's not forget that Nemesis can wield a freaking rocket launcher. I mean, it's crazy enough that he can run faster than us, follow us from room to room, but now he can even use weapons. But the icing on the cake is his ability to instant kill our characters once he grabs a hold of us, eliminating Jill in a way that is similar to Brad. Overall, Nemesis was a formidable tyrant, and Umbrella has done a great job of developing a BOW that has the capabilities of a superhuman, but at the same time retaining intelligence that helps him hunt down the infamous STARS members. Alright, so now, let's break down and see who would win between these two tyrants in their base form, the new version of Mr. X or Nemesis. So both tyrants displays massive resilience when it comes to being attacked by a lot of our firearms, especially since both wear their respective trenchcoat limiter, which allows them to deflect a lot of damage from our weapons, but also keep their mutations at bay. But this new version of Mr. X only allows us to deal more damage if we shoot him on the head, because even when shooting him on his limiter with my infinite submachine gun, my bullets will literally just bounce off his body. Whereas with Nemesis, he's still able to receive damage when shooting him at any part of his body, but this is probably due to the fixed camera angle style gameplay of the past. But if they do make a remake of RE3, I'm sure we'll be playing an over-the-shoulder aspect of gameplay like we did here in this new RE2 remake, where we can see Nemesis also deflect bullets off his trenchcoat limiter like Mr. X, but until then, I'll have to give the edge to Mr. X in this aspect. Alright, so next is their overall combat mechanics during our gameplay. So both Tyrants displays the ability to stalk our characters throughout their environment, but Nemesis does this differently by being able to outrun our characters, which increases the tension during our encounters. But also the tanky controls of the past doesn't help either, where our only caveat is being able to use some newly implemented dodge mechanic that was present in Resident Evil 3, giving us a small fighting chance when facing Nemesis head on. Also, both Tyrants are able to do a variety of melee moves that can affect our character's ability to move past them, which included their standard attacks, which causes our protagonist to be staggered even just for a little bit. Or when they either grab a hold of our characters and throw us like a ragdoll. But here's where we see Nemesis shine, because not only doesn't he allow us to stand back up quick, but it gives him a chance to pick us up again and do his finishing move. Also, Nemesis in its base form also wields a rocket launcher, so Mr. X would have to think twice of trying to face him head on. So overall, the combat advantage would have to go to Nemesis, even against this new version of Mr. X. So the last thing to compare between these two Tyrants were their significance in their overall storyline in the game. Anyway, so starting off with Mr. X, we all knew he was sent there by Umbrella to eliminate any witnesses in this new remake, giving our protagonist an obstacle to overcome time and time again. As with Nemesis, which was similar in a sense to Mr. X, that he was programmed by Umbrella to eliminate the remaining STARS members, and that he was an obstacle for us to overcome. But his significance in the storyline in Resident Evil 3 was profound, giving us so many tension-filled moments in either during our regular walkthrough or during the cutscenes. With the great examples was when we saw him go toe-to-toe with Mikhail inside the cable car. Or when he stops our escape when he destroys a helicopter at the clock tower area.
We're saved. Down here! It's finally over. Huh?
So all in all, both Tyrants gave us players a great tension-filled time, but also showcased what the potential of a BOW has to offer. No wonder Umbrella was so keen on developing these behemoths to become the best possible monsters that they can be. Anyways, what do you guys think overall about these two Tyrants in their base form, and who would win if both of them clashed head on? Please let me know in the comment section down below. I'd love to hear your guys' opinion on this matter. Also, if you guys did enjoy the content, please feel free to like and subscribe. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching my Mr. X vs Nemesis video, and as always, you guys have a great rest of your day, and this is Hey DeVuH signing out.